It's time for Paleo Radio, only on Secular Media Network.
You are now entering Paleo Radio.
Welcome to Paleo Radio with your hosts Jeremiah Bannister and Joe Elder.
Welcome to Paleo Radio on 95.3 FM, 1680 AM, WPRR, Public Reality Radio, and streaming on Spreaker and Secular Media Group. My name is Joe Elder, and I am joined by two very, very special guests. I can introduce them individually. The first guest that we have, his name is Ed Brayton. Ed is the previous radio host of Culture Wars, current writer at Patheos.com, and a board member of Center of Inquiry Grand Rapids. He's been a part of many political and religious debates nationally and is a continuing activist for secular humanism here in Grand Rapids. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thanks, Joe.
And next we have the amazing Justin Schieber. Justin Schieber is a former co-host of Reasonable Doubts, the radio show and podcast, and current host of Real Atheology, the YouTube channel, where he produces informational videos on contemporary academic philosophy of religion. Justin enjoys promoting a friendly yet firm skepticism towards religious claims. He frequently lectures on the philosophical arguments for and against the existence of God and has participated in many public debates throughout the United States and Canada. He is also currently working on a book about the existence of God with Canadian theologian Randall Rouser of Prometheus Books, which is due out later this year. Welcome to Paleo Radio, Justin Schieber.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah. So we want to just kick off talking about elections. We wanted to talk about just basically what's been going on. Obviously, it seems like Donald Trump is going to be our Republican nominee. And I'm just going to open it to the floor so we can have some banter about it. How do you guys feel about the 2016 elections?
Terrified? Good start.
Yeah.
Although I think, and I've written about this a lot lately, I don't think Trump really has a realistic shot of winning the presidency, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't frighten us that he's managed to get the nomination of one of our two major parties, because I think he has tapped into this vein of bigotry and xenophobia that has always been there. And if you go back 50 years to Richard Hofstadter's work and The Paranoid Style in American Politics, I mean, you read that and it feels like it was written yesterday. And it feels like it was written about Donald Trump rather than the John Birch Society, which is who it really was written about. And he documents that we've had periods of this throughout our history. The anti-immigrant hysteria against the Irish and the Chinese and all of that. Now we're seeing it with Latinos. The fact that he has tapped into that and sort of brought it to the surface, and that paranoia, that bigotry, that xenophobia comes to the surface whenever we're scared as a country. Yeah. And now you have fear of terrorism, and that is fueling all of this, and Trump is just throwing gas on the fire. And that scares the heck out of me.
So you say you're not too worried about him winning the presidency.
Hey, Justin, can I get you real close to that mic just so I can pick you up? Just get it right up by your mouth.
Yeah, Perfect. There we go.
Thank you.
So you say you're not really particularly scared about him winning the presidency, but I guess there's always the chance that the kind of fear-mongering that he's really kind of revving up here could be exploited if something were to happen, some particularly unfortunate event.
I think that's the
what
one,
scares me.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I think could happen. A major terrorist attack on American soil could shift the dynamic of this race in his favor in a big way.
Yeah.
And even though the polls actually show that most Americans, it's about 57, 58%, trust Hillary Clinton more than Donald Trump when it comes to the war on terrorism.
Oh, okay.
But that, I don't think that matters. I think it's not about the policy, it's about
the personality.
It's about that, what do people long for when they get scared? A big, strong man, the authoritarian leader, to come in and take charge and beat up the bad guys that are scaring us.
Yeah. Last time I checked, we're not out of the woods in being a misogynistic society. So
Right.
this idea of we're scared, we're going to go kind of running, we're going to have our big, strong protector come to the door.
Like when we skip out on debates because someone calls us out on our misogyny.
That's exactly where I was going to go to. But that's
Big,
the
strong
thing
guy.
that Donald Trump has seemed to confuse he's confused me with, at least, is how did he get everyone to buy into him being a big, strong man where he's notorious for looking after litigation for people? I mean, he's suing Bill Maher because Bill Maher made a joke about his dad being an orangutan. I mean, like, he's a very odd guy and he's very thin-skinned. He's talking about his hands, all that sort of thing. How did he confuse us into being strong?
It's classic bullying behavior. It's classic intimidation behavior. And, the root of bullying and the root of this sort of desire to dominate is insecurity. That's what explains it. Why does he threaten to sue everybody? Because he's insecure. Mm-hmm. Why does he freak out when anybody questions him on anything and start calling them names? Because he's insecure. But that insecurity, particularly in men and particularly in wealthy, powerful men, manifests itself as a desire to dominate and control. And that's where the authoritarian personality comes in. And that's why I think he has much more appeal on a visceral level. So in a poll, someone might say, Hillary's got a lot of experience in this, and so I probably trust her more. In the aftermath of a big terrorist attack, though, you have a visceral reaction, and it's get Big Daddy to protect me. So that, I think Justin's absolutely right. That is the one thing that would, I think, significantly shift the dynamic of the election.
I think there's a kind of feigned confidence in the way he presents himself as so kind of cavalier about the whole thing. He doesn't take, I don't know, like it seems like when he's talking about these potential threats, like he talks about it like as, it's going to be so easy, we're just going to go over there.
Yeah.
Like, don't press me for details, but it's going to be very easy for me to take care of this entire problem for everybody.
But a lot of people like that.
A lot of people do. He talks about it like it's a movie. We talk about this on Paleo Radio all the time. It's a movie. It's a movie where there's a certain amount of bad guys, and Rambo comes in there and he blows up the shed and he knocks over the guard tower, and then all of a sudden all the bad guys are dead, and the movie's over, roll credits, and we move on. Right. And it's disingenuous of thinking that those people have family members and there's repercussive actions to what you do, and that's the whole element that I think he's kind of forgetting.
Why were the guards all hanging around the guard tower?
And why can't they shoot very well, for Christ's sake?
Right. They shoot like stormtroopers.
Yeah, I mean, they're flipping awful. Do you guys think Donald Trump being the Republican nominee is a better option than Ted Cruz?
Ooh. To be the nominee?
Yes, I'm not saying he is president. I'm saying per the situation and how we're running.
In a horse race sense, like would I rather see Hillary Clinton run against? I think Trump is the easier target.
Yeah.
I think Cruz is actually scarier when it comes to public policy. But either one of them. I mean, this is the weird thing about this election. Like the first two finishers in the Republican race were the two people that are hated the most within their own party. Ted Cruz is absolutely despised by Republicans in the Senate. They wouldn't spit on that guy if he was on fire. Mm-hmm. You've seen what's happened with Trump since he got the nomination. I mean, Paul Ryan came out and said, I can't support him. Bill Kristol wants to run a third-party candidate. Mitt Romney says, I will not vote for him. Some people, and this is a choice that they're all going to have to face, particularly those who are running for elections down ticket, Senate and House. They're going to have to make that choice. Do I embrace Trump or do I run from him?
And all the people saying that now, though, I wonder, are they still going to be saying that? Are they still going to be holding that principled line come November? Mm-hmm. Because people have short-term, they don't have very good memory here. So I feel like they could probably get away with an eventual unification around Trump come November, and then people will hold them to, what about you when you said this?
I think it's going to be a big split. I think there's going to be some that will do it, no matter how awkward it might be. I mean, yesterday Rick Perry came out and endorsed Donald Trump after calling him a cancer who would destroy conservatism.
And I didn't know he came back.
And even if they go against him, I guess the question is that going to hurt him? For instance, last 10 years, you could argue even 15 or 20, the right has kind of been cultivating their constituency to not really respond well to anything that's defined as the government or the establishment or anything.
Right.
So when these establishment candidates come out and say, I'm not going to support Donald Trump, I despise him, he's awful, I don't really know if that drives the constituency away from him more than it clings them to him.
I think
Well, again, I think there's a split. I think you're going to see some people who find that the break with Trump compelling, and some that don't. So I think you're going to see those that do embrace him will try to make it sound like, yes, we're all coming together. But Bill Kristol isn't going to change his mind.
No way.
there's a lot of them. And the other big part of this is the Republican donor base. And I mean the big donor base, not the guys that send in $500. Politico had an article yesterday where they talked to about a dozen of the biggest Republican donors and their representatives, including the Cook brothers. And the Cook brothers are basically going to sit this out. Mm-hmm. They don't like Trump.
Yeah,
and
they're punting, kind of.
Well, here's what's going to happen. I think a whole bunch of these big donors is they're going to say Trump's a waste of time. He's not going to win. There's no point throwing our money at that. So what we need to do is hold on to the Senate. There's a very good chance the Senate flips, especially with Trump at the top of the ticket, and a small chance that the House flips. And I think they're going to look at the Senate and say, look, we got to build a firewall here.
Yes.
At 51 votes.
Yep.
And they're going to throw their money into those races.
Bringing that up, it kind of brings in, just moving over a little bit to Bernie. You look at what's going on with Bernie Sanders. You had an article about him mathematically. I just kind of wanted to bring it up. What do you think about the Bernie movement in the sense of, in the future, the 2016 election is very important, but in 2018, when we're going to have a lot of chances to move people in and out of congressional seats, that's going to be when it really matters if people that are part of the Bernie revolution stick around. Do you think they will? Do you think people will be engaged?
I hope so, and I hope that they're becoming more realistic about this. I mean, we've seen a lot of the really hardcore Bernie fans just have left planet Earth,
Yeah.
But here's what I think. I don't think Bernie Sanders ever really thought he could win. I think he was realistic from the start. I think for him, this was a chance to jumpstart a populist movement to get money, the influence of big money, out of politics. And that's a long-term deal. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. And so I hope that the Bernie supporters, and I'm one of them, I would rather have him in office myself. I think they need to stop focusing on the nomination. Although I hope he doesn't pull out. I hope they still vote for him and all of that. But once the nomination process is done, start building a movement. And that means creating organizations, getting funding. That's hard work. That takes a lot of organization. It takes people that really have skills. And I hope that that's something to do. And I think that's Bernie's long-term goal. And there is still a chance of winning that in the long term. So I hope they stick around. I hope they get serious about building an organization to do that. And stop pretending that he's going to make this miraculous comeback and win the nomination. It is not going to happen, folks.
What do you think about Bernie Sanders and the movement? Justin, do you think that is something that's going to continue on, or do you think it may fizzle out?
Well, I think there isn't anybody left that wasn't surprised at his success. I think that was quite clearly a surprise for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that in the future, people are going to pay attention to that sentiment that does exist among the Democratic and the more independent-leaning persons. And so they're going to – I think there's a good chance that obviously he's going to bring the party more to the left. And so I think that's generally a good thing. So
yeah, I think so, too.
And let me add one thing. Elizabeth Warren is really important in this, too.
There you go.
And she's doing a heck of a job in the Senate. And she is ideologically very well aligned with Bernie.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to, especially if or when Clinton wins the election in November, if the Democrats retake control of the Senate, I wouldn't be surprised to see her given the chairmanship of the relevant committees that control Wall Street and such. And if that happens, she can make a big difference here.
Oh,
yeah, I think that would be very important, especially in the future, depending on where Elizabeth Warren goes. We know that she didn't want to run for president or isn't interested in a VP opportunity, and I think she's got some plans there. We have our first caller. I do want to remind everybody this is a live show for the first hour of Paleo Radio here, and you can call in at 616-656-1680. We want to welcome on Rick from Grand Rapids, listening on 1680 AM. How are you doing, Rick?
How are you, Joe?
Good to hear from you. We have a history, obviously.
I have never met you. I've never had the pleasure of meeting you in person, and I don't know the other two gentlemen at all, I'm sorry to say.
Well, I still feel like I know you very well. We've spoken on many occasions.
Well, the fact that you described us as gentlemen proves that you've never met us.
We're best friends now.
So, although Joe and I have disagreed on some things, he's always been a gentleman about it.
I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyway,
what do you want to say?
Well, what I was going to say was, we hear on right-wing talk radio that we just have to, we the Republicans, we've got to stop nominating these moderates, and they dare to call people like McCain and Romney moderates. However, they said what we've really got to do is we've really got to nominate a conservative this time. So as Howard Dean said this week on one of the cable shows, now the Republicans have nominated, and I'm talking about points of view here, not character. This is the most liberal Republican nominee since Dwight David Eisenhower. And Dwight David Eisenhower, to my estimation, although I was just a kid, was a real statesman. So how do these Republican conservatives that have been saying we've got to nominate a real conservative, not only is this man sadly lacking in character and he's racist and sexist, but he doesn't really have the conservative bona fides, and yet we can say maybe the rank and file, and I know this is going to sound elitist, didn't know what they were doing, and there is a split in the Republican elite or establishment, whatever term you want to use, but I don't understand why this man isn't being repudiated by everyone that considers himself a conservative. What say you?
Well, I think that there's a certain group of people that we were talking about this before we came onto the air today, where there's a backlash to kind of a PC movement that I think is going on socially across the board here in America, and there's an extreme element of all movements. And the extreme element we're seeing is one that gets really riled up by Donald Trump, where the idea of saying things like, well, he really says what he means, or he's a straight shooter, or the guy really just kind of says it like it is. That is code for saying he's breaking the mold and he's being the way that I want to hear, which is basically being kind of overtly kind of like a bastard, and that's how he acts, and people like that, you know?
Yeah, thank you for not pulling punches, because that's exact. I don't like political correctness either. However, I think there is a thin line between political correctness and just being going over to the other extreme and just being an overt racist or sexist. I mean, the things this man has said about his own children, for crying out loud. I mean, and women and blacks and Hispanics and POWs, handicapped people. I was just, I'll be brief here because I know I'm not supposed to talk too long. I was talking to a Christian Reformed Republican friend of mine who usually considers himself quite a moralist, and I ticked off all these things I just said about him, And here's what he told me. He says, well, Rick, I know the man is an idiot. I know he's immoral. He's probably not going to heaven. But doggone it, I'm going to enthusiastically support him because he's going to shake things up. Words to that effect. I'm kind of paraphrasing. That just appalled me.
Well, that makes me think of somebody who's having trouble with their computer. So they're like, I don't understand how it works. I'm kind of angry at it, but you know what? It'll feel really good to grab a ball bat and smash it, and that'll solve a lot of my problems because at least I'm shaking things up. I'm knocking some hardware around.
That's a really good analogy, actually.
What these people are not considering is that, he could change things for the worse.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I say this, and okay, before I do, I just want to give a little bit of a clause here that I'm not endorsing or saying that Trump is like Hitler or Mussolini, but I am saying that when you have a time of economic stress, or people even feel that there's economic stress, or they feel, like Ed said, that they're scared, you have people that can turn a few ways. And when America experienced the Great Depression, we ended up with FDR on the outskirts of that. That ended up pretty good. Italy and Germany didn't end up with leaders of that sort when they were having economic issues. And it just goes to say that there's a lot of people that get angry and want to see a change, and an uneducated change is worse than the status quo for 4 more years, I think. Yeah.
They're looking for the Lone Ranger on the white horse.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate it. We're going to have to take our first break, I have a feeling. If you guys would like to call in, again, that's 616-656-1680. Please tune in, and we're going to be continuing the conversation with Ed Brayton and Justin Schieber here on Paleo Radio. Tune in, stick around. We'll see you in about 2 minutes.
Love Paleo Radio? Join the club. Support our work by visiting patreon.com/Paleo Radio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio on 95.3 FM, 1680 AM. Joe Elder along with Ed Brayton and Justin Schieber. Jeremiah Bannister is in Florida catching some rays. We are continuing...
California, isn't it?
Oh, California. I'm sorry. That's right. He is in California catching some rays, wearing a beautiful sun hat as he was posting on his videos.
Panama hat. I love that hat.
Yeah,
that's great.
Classy. Yeah. I like that. We're continuing the discussion about the election. In terms of Hillary Clinton, guys, what do you guys think is going to be her position? And do you think a guy like Donald Trump can insult a woman who's running for president in the same way that he can his Republican opponents?
Oh, gosh.
No. I think, look, probably 40% of voters have already decided they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton. 35% maybe have already decided they're going to vote for Donald Trump. The battle is over those people in the middle. And what worked in the Republican primary when you're appealing to the Tea Party whack jobs is not going to work if you're trying to appeal to more reasonable people. And so, no, I don't think it can be effective for him. In fact, I think it probably alienates people if he does that. I mean, this is a guy who has, when it comes to Hillary Clinton, he actually posted on Twitter, this was years ago, about, how she can't run the country. She can't even keep her husband happy. Talked about, that's just not going to play.
No.
But I don't think he's capable of changing. I think his ego is so huge, and he has been surrounded by nothing but yes men his entire life. I mean, we're seeing it now. They brought in Doug Manafort to replace Corey Lewandowski's still there, but Manafort is now running the campaign. And Manafort basically had two sort of mandates. One was run the delegate operation because they were getting their butts kicked by Ted Cruz in the delegate operation. But number two was to kind of make this a more serious, professional political campaign, and that means making Trump a more conventional candidate. That lasted about 24 hours. Trump even in that big foreign policy talk, which was scripted, they spent weeks writing it.
And there was no detail.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
I mean, policy is irrelevant to him.
No.
I think he just thinks that he's untouchable, that no matter what he says, and let's face it, he just had 9 months having that reinforced for him, where no matter how ridiculous he got, no matter how insulting, no matter how misogynist, no matter how racist, every time that the rest of us said, oh, this is really going to hurt him, he jumped 4 points in the polls.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why
amazing.
I'm stopping just shy of making predictions about how it will go from here on out.
But he's appealing to a different audience now, and that, I think,
true.
does make a difference.
But I don't necessarily know that that's going to change his behavior.
No, it won't. That's what I'm saying.
And so I'm thinking that the debates are going to be entertaining as they are painful to watch. And I don't think what surprises me actually is that after the Indiana primary, he calmed down his tone and said that Ted Cruz was a great opponent and all this. I don't know where that comes from. I want to know what's going through his head when he has these momentary lapses of insanity and talks like a somewhat
I get that.
Normal person.
I think that makes sense. That's always been Trump's pattern. If you are his enemy, it's only temporary. I mean, he actually said yesterday, I caught him on one of the news networks giving a talk, and he was talking about the fact that Rick Perry had endorsed him and all the horrible things that Rick Perry had said about him. And he said, I like Rick Perry because we're not competing anymore.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine, right? That's something everybody's used to fight with as a friend of his now, too.
Yeah. He is pure offensive.
So it wasn't about looking more presidential and being ready to take on the...
He's a businessman. He understands that sometimes alliances shift, and that's just that's his pragmatism there.
Yeah. Okay. And this is one that it's more of something I've noticed about him is Donald Trump is going to talk in this election, and if he could, let's just pretend that he could change, and we'll say that he adapts all the ways everybody wants him to, and he becomes very presidential and he becomes very professional, then I guess I would have to ask the question of people who want the person who's anti-establishment, why in the hell are you voting for him anymore?
Right.
If he's showing that he's really good at playing the game, that doesn't make him outside the game, it makes him a good player.
Right.
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 So we have another caller on the line. This is from Augusta, Georgia. Pradeep, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Ed, this is Pradeep Satya Prakash.
I've been a
long-time reader and fan of yours on your blog and Facebook. And I'm just honored to be talking with you and Justin. This is wonderful. Question for you, directly. I've been hearing about this Clinton's email scandal for a couple of months now. And I can't seem to find any good articles. It seems very partisan. The left-wing sides say that she's innocent. Bernie supporters say she's guilty. Right-wing says she's guilty. What's your thoughts on that? What's the result of that issue? Is it a real issue or a fake scandal?
Honestly, I've paid very little attention to it, predominantly because she's not getting indicted, folks. Even if she was guilty of horrible things, she is not getting indicted. So I've just sort of considered it irrelevant. But we have a long history of this. I mean, Colin Powell used a private server, used his private email a lot. In fact, over the last 20 years or so, because emails to government email addresses are prone to FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, throughout the Bush administration, it was the norm for staffers at the White House to use personal emails because then they could hide them from a FOIA request. So this is not an unusual thing at all. It seems to me that it's been blown vastly out of proportion, but in the end, nothing's going to happen with this. It's going to go away.
Yeah. And then what do you think, Pradeep? Would you is that upsetting in the sense, or do you think that's probably status quo? What do you think?
I think so as well. The whole thing is I've just been talking to people and arguing with them, especially Bernie people, and it seems to be that that's something they're clinging on. This is not only just Bernie people. It's even people like Robert Reich and Sink Uger on what is that?
The Young Turks.
Young Turks, yeah. I mean, these guys normally I listen to and I respect, and they're kind of seemingly hanging their hat on that. And it's kind of strange for me to see people who I normally, agree with, so vehemently, against her and saying, "Hey, this is, she's guilty, she's being indicted, she shouldn't be running, this and that, drop out." That just seemed odd to me.
It's just desperation. I think it's they're so in the tank for their own candidate and they realize, look, the only shot we have at this is she gets indicted, and then Sanders sort of becomes the candidate by default.
Right.
But that just isn't going to happen. And so I think they're making a huge deal out of very little.
Yeah, my thing was if there's any real chance of her getting indicted, if there's any potential of anything going bad on her, you'd think the DNC would have a backup candidate, maybe a Joe Biden or something like that ready to go. And he's not in it. When Joe Biden said, "I'm not going to run," I just figured, if Joe's not going to do it, then she really is not in trouble, as far as I could tell, because they'd have a backup candidate if she were.
We could have Martin O'Malley, all 8 people who know who he is.
Martin O'Malley, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Hey, thank you for the call, Pradeep. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Now would be a good time to cut to talking to Justin specifically about your YouTube channel, Real Atheology. Could you just kind of explain what your goals and aspirations with the channel are?
Sure. So after I left Reasonable Doubts, or after Reasonable Doubts we all had parted ways, and I'm still doing the philosophy stuff, the philosophy of religion stuff, and so I'm like, well, I need a new avenue for this, and so I decided to start a YouTube channel, and so what I'm doing on there is just kind of exploring contemporary academic philosophy of religion, and so I'm producing these short little videos that are instructive on these topics, because I think that generally speaking, the kind of dialogue that goes on about this stuff is, for the most part, pretty superficial, and so I'm just doing, I guess, my small part in bringing some of the bit more substantive stuff from the literature to a broader audience. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with that.
Yeah, that's very good to hear. And I also know we here at Paleo Radio, we've received messages just about Real Atheology even, and how people have asked to have you on the show or to explain it just for that exact thing, is that it's a little bit deeper level and it goes much deeper than kind of face value on topics. Is there a certain philosophical element to religion or logical fallacy with religion that you see a lot or that you particularly like to talk about?
Well, when it comes to, for me, I kind of enjoy criticizing religious belief about as much as I enjoy criticizing bad atheistic arguments against it. So, right. And I've not done that much on the channel, but I kind of, I guess for lack of a better way to put this, I like to kind of play a middle ground and not necessarily advocate for one particular position. Like at the end of my videos, I usually end with something like, "Is this a good argument? What are some objections to it?" Or things like that, trying to encourage dialogue rather than cheerleading from one side of the field. Because I think that positioning oneself as an apologist for one particular side, I think that it's not very conducive to getting yourself in the right mindset to take these things seriously and objectively. And so while I recognize that I routinely fail in doing so, I think that it's at least a good practice for me personally to position myself in a kind of neutral ground to both defend theistic arguments, criticize atheistic arguments, and then do the reverse of that as well.
Yeah, I definitely see value in that, especially in the idea of, a lot of people have an idea that you won't get much change within a tribe unless it comes from within the tribe, right? Whether that's true or not, it is just something that a lot of people believe. So in practicality makes it true, right? Yeah. And the atheist community definitely needs that. There needs to be some censorship on this side because there is. In my experiences in early atheism, when I became an atheist a couple of years back, and I was kind of looking around. The analogy I've always used was like uprooters and planters. I was going in when I saw a lot of people that were like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. These guys are just ripping up your theology, but there's not really. It's about breaking down arguments, but it's not kind of like what do we do here and now. And one thing that's going on with atheism, though, is the sense of now that I've broken out of religion, now I think logically all the time, no matter what, and 100% of everything I say is logically backed, and that's not necessarily true.
And all my memes are killer.
And all my memes are killer. Yeah, thank you.
And my response is, let me introduce you to my Facebook feed.
That's right.
Which is filled with irrationality, and some of it from me. That's I think important to recognize, as Justin just said. He fails at this, and I do this constantly, criticizing atheist memes and such, and we're all prone to motivated reasoning. We're all prone to confirmation bias, and none of us escapes it completely. But if you want to be a truly rational person, you have to put in the effort to avoid that as much as possible. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's so much easier just to go, well, that confirms what I believe, so I'll believe it. But we need to be more rational and objective about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We're going to continue the discussion with Justin and with Ed here on Paleo Radio. Please, if you want to talk to us, call in at 616-656-1680 for more Paleo Radio. Stick around. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio live here in studio at 95.3 FM, 1680 AM, WPRR Grand Rapids. Joe Elder, Ed Brayton, and Justin Schieber. We were talking about Justin Schieber's YouTube channel, Real Atheology, and basically the concept of atheists feeling like most of their arguments are always logical. Do you have any examples or any ideas of atheist arguments that are pretty weak that you like to go after?
Well, okay. So there's as with most arguments, I think have good and rather poor versions of them. So, and a lot of that involves, I think, a kind of confusion between the terms being used in these kind of philosophical discussions. So, for example, a lot of people will say evolution, right? What we understand evolution to be is inconsistent with theism, right? When what they mean, they say that, but what they mean is that it's inconsistent with a particular interpretation of Pauline theology within Christianity, right? But then some people they will dig in their heels and they'll say, no, it's inconsistent with just the existence of basic theism. And I think that's quite obviously false. There's obviously no contradiction there. It would be an incredibly difficult feat to make that claim. But that's not to say that I don't think that, for example, the observation of evolution provides extremely strong evidence against theism. So the proposition that evolution is true makes the proposition that theism is true less likely when we take it on board. And so it's one of those kinds of distinction-making things and kind of clarificatory thing with the terms of how these all interact.
That would be clarifying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, clarifying. Yeah, there you go.
Clarificatory. Is that even a word, or did I just made that up?
Hey,
You
we'll check
totally
the
made that up,
We'll
but
check the
that's-
thesaurus, but Ed's thesaurus says no.
I've done that with justificatory as well.
Hey.
I don't know why, but it sounds fancy.
It sounds fancy. Yeah, it's nice. No, that is an interesting point. It's kind of I've observed this in the atheist community as well. Is I'm a big science buff. It's actually what kind of drove me into a lack of belief, but it's not because I had proof against it so much as I don't see the proof for it. So and naturally I default to saying it's not there. But I do have people in my circles who have said things like, well, evolution, can disprove a deity. Mm-hmm. And, Eastern philosophy, Eastern religious philosophy pretty much is predicated on the idea that we all come from the same place or built up of the same things. And it's just a little bit of it doesn't make full weight, I don't think.
I can give you lots of examples of these kinds of arguments.
Yeah,
I know
Ed
that-
always
I was
has
going to
all
say,
the good ones.
Ed is really good with the memes as well. If you guys
but
have
I mean-
a chance, please
But not just
follow
memes.
that.
I mean, these are arguments that you hear all the time. I know Justin and I talked about this many times. Like, babies are born atheists.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't you love
I
that
hate
one?
that argument. They're also born global warming deniers because they just don't know anything about it. They're not capable of thinking about it.
Yeah. Yes.
Or
It also denies what we actually know about neuroscience and how people have these kind of agency detectors, these hyperactive agency detectors, or at least what Daniel Dennett refers to that as, where we do, as children, interpret agency. And so, not every belief is equally plausible to humans,
That's
and
right.
Theism is a very intuitive belief. It matches a lot of the core intuitions we have about the world being guided by some agency. It has a lot. It coheres a lot with a kind of dualist mentality, that the mind is some kind of separate substance from the physical realm. Beliefs like that we're very susceptible to some beliefs and not to others.
Yeah, great point. In terms of Real Atheology, is there any certain YouTube videos that you've done that have garnered a lot of attention, or one that you like more than others that you'd want people to check out if they had the chance, or every single one of them in order on a playlist?
No one in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, the YouTube channel is still pretty new, and so it only has, I think, about maybe 15 videos or so. But one of the videos I that I share as kind of representative of at least what I stand for as a person and what I'm trying to do is a talk that I gave at Skepticon last year in Springfield, Missouri, in which I go through a few inductive arguments for naturalism. And so I kind of unpack these and how they can work in a fairly simple manner. And then I talk about some, I think, common mistakes in the atheist community, about their term usage and stuff. And so, I don't know, to me, I thought it was a good talk. And a lot of people came up after me and said they learned a lot from it. And so I've found it to be a valuable, spokes video for my channel.
Yeah,
I'm making up words all day.
Spokes video. That's exactly right. That's the way to go about it.
These will be an Urban Dictionary in like an hour.
You're also working on a book, correct?
Yes. I am.
And that's with Prometheus Books and also with Randall. Is it Rouser? I'm sorry.
Rouser. Is
Rouser.
His name. Yeah, he's a evangelical blogger and a philosopher out of Edmonton, Alberta. And so last year around April, I flew up there and we did a debate at University of Alberta. And a couple months later, he contacted me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing a debate book. Would you be interested?" And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so we've been working on that for quite a while. And personally, I think it's been a great experience interacting with someone so regularly and kind of understanding where they're coming from in a more, again, avoiding the superficial essences of these debates, how they usually go. And so it's actually a dialogue in form. And so each chapter we devote to a particular argument. We kind of switch back and forth where he defends an argument, then I defend one, and we go back and forth as the chapters go. And it's one big conversation. And what I really like is that while it is in dialogue and form, it's not necessarily it's not superficial. It actually gets really deep into these questions, and so I'm really quite excited about it. And it should be done in about a month, and hopefully released in a couple more months after editing and all that fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, please keep us posted. We'll continue to share the information on Paleo Radio for sure. Again, guys, this is a live show, so if you want to if you have any questions for Ed or Justin or myself, please call us at 616-656-1680. The other topic I wanted to move on, we're not going to spend very much time because we're almost hitting our next segment, is climate change and climate change denial. We won't, maybe about 3 minutes here, but there's a running consensus now where most right-wing people have fallen over or become accepting of climate change, yet they don't feel that it's man-made. Do you guys see that as actually being an issue, or do you think that we can still solve a lot of problems as long as people just accept that climate change is happening?
Well, part of the them making that distinction, I think, is problematic because then they have to be to be motivated to make a change. They have to think that our behavior, ceasing some particular portion of our behavior, is going to have a relevant effect on the climate. And if they don't think that we're relevant in this change, then that's not going to help us.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I don't think that really helps. The argument that I've been making for years on this is even if climate change and global warming is the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on mankind, there's a million other reasons to move away from fossil fuels and toward renewable energy.
Very much.
Like, forget global warming. How about just public health?
Yes.
The effects of spewing massive amounts of pollutants into the air and, destroying water, coal ash ponds, bursting into waterways, the effects on asthma in children, lead in the water. I mean, there's a million reasons that we should be moving away from fossil fuels, even if global warming is totally bogus.
Yeah.
But what if they think that pollution is like a form of free speech?
That honestly, but almost in a way, don't they? I mean, there are some people that, in a way, they do. Or George Carlin, this is a good point that I always like to bring up. He's obviously a bit more cynical, and he said, we can't even save the planet. We can't save the planet. We can't even save ourselves. But he also said that people are very arrogant and they only want to improve their own environment. But what I say to that is that can be a good thing. If we saw smog going over Grand Rapids and we decide that just for selfish reasons, and we don't believe in global warming or anything, but we want to change our behavior just to get the smog to go away, that selfish reasoning still did produce a good result.
There are scenarios where that can be beneficial.
Yeah. But you bring up a fantastic point, Justin. If somebody thinks that our actions aren't included in what happens with climate change, then why would they think your actions against it would help very much either, right?
And some of the arguments we hear on this, I mean, we literally have sitting members of Congress during
snowball
hearings.
Fights.
Yeah, Jim Imhoff walking in with a snowball.
But we've had, Joe Barton, who's, a Republican representing the oil industry in Houston, making arguments like only God can change the climate, so we have, there's no point in doing anything. I'm just like, wait a minute, you said that out loud. You're a public official. What the heck?
And if that's the case, then why don't we all just go to Burning Man for the rest of our lives? And what are we even doing wearing suits and ties and doing our job?
Because I hate the smell of patchouli.
Fantastic. Hey, we're going to continue the conversation in Paleo Radio here at 95.3 FM, 1680 AM. Please keep it going. We're going to have Jeremiah Bannister of Paleo Radio, my good friend and our good friend, join us in a little bit. Stick around.
For debates, interviews, or speeches, contact Paleo Radio Show at gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
Welcome back to a live episode of Paleo Radio here in WPRR Studios in Grand Rapids. Joe Elder, Ed Brayton, Justin Schieber in studio, along with Darren Gibson running the board. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you. Just again, reminder, you're listening right now at 1680 AM and 95.3 FM. Also, folks in Allegan County at 90.1 FM, WPRR FM, and Pontiac, Illinois at 88.3 WPJC.
Thank you for keeping my plug pure, because you're way better at it than I am. Hey, we have Jeremiah joining us on or via phone call here in Palm Springs. How are you doing, JB?
I'm doing fantastic. Totally magnificent, 100%.
No, that's good. How's the weather out there?
It's not even a question. I learned this. I learned this when I first got here. I'm serious, man. I learned the first day I was sitting there, and I remember I was thinking, I was like, well, man, maybe I need like a sweater, like what happens if it gets cold? And then I said, well, what happens if it rains? They get like 4 inches of rain a year here. That's it. And so every day, a friend of mine said that when he was here for a week working Coachella, he said that he would wake up every morning like he normally does to check the weather. And eventually he's like, this is the dumbest thing I'm doing here. he's like, every day is sunny and amazing. So Palm Springs, dude, is just the best.
The easiest job in the world is a weatherman in San Diego.
There you go.
It's the same fourcast every day.
Or in general, just being a weatherman, because you can be wrong and still keep your job forever. It's a good gig.
Right. So it's awesome. I'm absolutely loving it right now. We're here. My dad's getting married today in a matter of hours, and I'm going to be the best man in his wedding. And so I'm standing outside this fitting shop here, and I'm looking at the beautiful mountains. There's some clouds making their way over. Of course, it's blocking the rain, so the low clouds end up getting shuffled around, and the ones with no rain give us some shade. And so it's just a gorgeous day here in Palm Springs.
Lovely. And you're wearing your beautiful Panama hat that everybody's been raving about online?
Hey, it's true, isn't it? I finally found something, man. Everybody, I got people saying, hey, you look great in that Panama Jack hat.
Is it made out of Panama papers?
It's made out of the skin of Manuel Noriega.
Right. But hey, it's keeping me cool. I got that. I got my aviators on. I'm looking super swanky.
That's fantastic. As we know you would.
Like Maverick and Top Gun.
I was going to say, dude, grow up, please shave the beard into a mustache for the wedding and just go full Magnum PI on this thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't look. If only I did look like Magnum PI. But every time I do that, I look like some foreign dictator. And I'm like, it always just looks so terrible every single time.
Oh, that's fantastic,
Jeremiah. You should have called me before you went out there. You could have borrowed one of my massive collection of ugly Hawaiian shirts and fit in with the local.
He's wearing one right now.
Doing Hawaii 5-0 on it.
Yeah, right now I'm wearing one.
Oh,
but no, I'm telling you, it's been great, and it's just an awesome time. I mean, literally, it's a really great time. But I can't wait to get back to Michigan. I miss everybody. I'm kind of lying a little bit about that, but I do miss everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure you want to see your kids and Angela.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up, too. How is Team Tiny Dancer, the website, going? Can you give us an update on that?
Well, I can. I can say this much, man. I was interviewed a couple days ago by David Smalley on Dogma Debate. And I encourage people to go to dogmadebate.com and to check out the interview. I think I begin around 19 minutes, and it lasts about 20 minutes after that. And it was an awesome time. I tried really hard not to cry. I said, I'm going to just keep my cool. I'm going to get the information out there. We're trying to make summer of 2016 a big summer. We were aiming to get to Washington, D.C. and Reason Rally and maybe even New York City. We're trying to get to these places. And so I get on. Everything was going smoothly for about, 5-6 minutes. And then Brandy gets on the microphone. And she was crying. And I just, as soon as I heard her crying, it was done. I was trying so hard, and I said, hey, I ain't stopping it. It's going to happen. And so, but I'll tell you, it was so powerful. It was such a great conversation. And Dogma Debate and the community for Dogma Debate really came through, because I can officially state that Team Tiny Dancer is going to be at Reason Rally.
That's fantastic.
We've already got our hotel rooms. We've already got everything set up. The kids are going to be in Pennsylvania spending a week with my mother and my father-in-law. They're going to go to places like the Hershey Chocolate World and all this cool stuff. And Angela and Samantha and myself, we're going to be at Washington, D.C., and it's hugs all around. So anybody who sees us and comes up, you got to watch it, because we're going to be hugging machines all over the place.
That's great to hear.
So it's powerful, though. And I woke up like the next day. We're looking at our GoFundMe. I'm looking at Twitter. I opened up my Twitter, and there's like 31 notifications. And I said, yeah, I was on Dogma Debate. That's just what happens, man. And so I go and I'm looking, and people are talking about the story, and then I go to GoFundMe, and I just literally broke down into a blubbering mess. I said, the money was more than sufficient. Let's put it that way. It was more than sufficient to make sure that we get there. And then the same day that we found that out, we get a phone call, and somebody has donated a timeshare, and they've paid for the entire thing for all of the family members.
That's fantastic.
To go down to Orlando to go to Disney.
Awesome.
So we're going to Disney World. I've never been to Disney World in my life. My kids have never been to Disney World. So this is a new thing. So summer of 2016, people are really stepping up to try to make it so that Samantha is as happy and as healthy as she can possibly be. And for any more updates on the status of her recurrence, the growth rate, the additional chemo to her schedule, I'd encourage people to go back and listen to the interview at dogmadebate.com.
Yeah, thank you for that. And are either of you guys, Ed or Justin, going to be attending Reason Rally?
Both of us. Yeah.
Both of us, yeah. And we might as well make it official. Paleo Radio, that would just be me included going there. We're all going to be there at Reason Rally. So please, that's going to be in Washington, D.C., June 4th at the Lincoln Memorial. I believe it starts at about 9 in the morning, goes all night long.
It's going to be fantastic.
Schedule.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact schedule, but there's also a big after party at like 8 o'clock in Crystal City, and we're going to be doing. I'm going over Mike Slomka.
Yeah,
and we're actually
great guy.
Patheos is actually paying for us to go down there, and we're going to produce video reports of not just the rally itself. We're going to be there for 5 straight days, the lobby days, the conference on Sunday, the Baba Brinkman show. You know, we're going to be at all of those things and doing video reports as well. And one of the things, let me plug this. I have been trying to recruit people because Ray Comfort has announced that he's going to be there, the infamous Banana Man. And so I want to get 5 to 15 people together to get banana costumes and wander around.
And do peanut butter jelly time around him?
No, somebody, I didn't know what that was. Somebody sent me a link to it, but I just hand out non-tracks from like Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I want to do a song as well.
Yes.
So, we were thinking of doing the old song "War," only making it prayer. What is it good for?
What about Banana Phone?
Ooh, Banana Phone. Classic.
I don't think I know what that is.
Well, you don't want to.
I'm so.
You're out of the loop.
Well,
you're out of the
sounds like
loop
we're gonna have
with
to have
all
a
these
think
kids
tank.
songs.
Right, two bananas, 1 cup. That's what
Yeah, there you go. For Ray Comfort. For Ray Comfort. No, it is going to be a blast. Anybody who is interested, try to book your plans to go to Reason Rally. It's going to be a fun, special, epic time. There's going to be a lot of free thinkers there, secular humanists, the like. Huge atheist gathering here every year, so it's going to be fun.
And Johnny Depp, for crying out loud.
Yeah, Johnny Depp's going to be there. So.
And Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, come on. It's getting better and better every time. So, hey, Jeremiah, is there anything you want to say before we begin our sign-off here?
Well, I'll tell you, Ted Cruz is out. He had a perfect ending to an otherwise perfect campaign when he accidentally knocked his wife in the face with his fist and elbow. I said, this guy is just a series of unfortunate social media events. I mean, it's the most awkward person in the world. But he's finally out. He's done. Kasich is done. Trump seems to be. I mean, maybe there's stuff up people's sleeves, but people are starting to kind of come around. So it's an interesting thing on that side. But I'll tell you, I'm fascinated by what's going on the left with the Democrats. Because up to this point, it was kind of this idea that, it's going to be a brokered convention on the right, and that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Look at this. And it's looking like the numbers aren't adding up quite so beautifully. For Hillary. And if Sanders keeps marching on and this keeps happening this way, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yes, it is. It is. I just wanted to say thank you guys very much. It's been a great show. We're going to have to cut very quick.